Now that the world is talking more and more about shame, the road to healing has become clearer. On the other hand, it's also started to become a misunderstood issue, and we all face it. So in this video, I'll start with the basics of understanding what shame is, how to recognize when you're in it, and then how to move through it and deal with it when it shows up. So, first, let's understand what shame is. It's a feeling of humiliation that comes for breaking a social or moral code that we believe in. The difference between shame and guilt is significant, though. Guilt is a belief that we have done something wrong, whereas shame is the belief that we are wrong. Guilt gives you the sense of obligation that you need to rectify that wrongdoing, whereas shame gives you the belief that you are broken. These are significant differences that can impact us in really, really bad ways. When we feel we're broken, we fall into anxiety, depression, and feelings of low self-worth. I was built on shame, as many people were. So I'm a very well-acquainted person with what shame does and how it impacts us, and I have personally used shame, and I still do at times. I make the mistake of doing it. So I often reflect on these things so that I try to avoid it as much as I can. The first thing you got to do is recognize shame is a method of social control. It impacts adolescent children and women the most, more than men, because they are the most vulnerable to society and getting rejected. And shame is a societal tool that we use to keep people in line to the social norms. It's something that happens. And it causes you to question your worth. It comes through the forms of teasing, looks of contempt, derision, name calling, all those types of things that we use. I remember in sports, it was used all the time. You guys are a bunch of girls running like a bunch of girls, right? Now we can't say that because we've shown that there's lots of girls that can outrun men, right? I remember there's a girl that I went to school with. She was an incredible athlete. Can't shame her. She was super, super great, right? Love to be able to run like her. These are the types of things that we do, though, to shame people. The second thing, religious shame is something that is constantly used in the forms of all kinds of religions. In fact, the only religion that they talk about, they've done studies of all sorts of countries. And the happiest country that they can find is in Thailand, which is a Buddhist country, and they don't deal in shame. They don't talk about that. The countries that deal in shame, there's a lot of angst and anxiety, like depression and feelings of disconnectedness that come with that. But people will conform, and it is a very effective tool to make people conform. But religious shame is a significant impact in North American society. And it was something that had a huge impact on me at the age of 4. In fact, it made me suicidal. And if you stick around to the end, I'll tell you why. The third thing is understanding the reason behind the shame. Changing the meaning to one of a problem to be solved versus being broken will release you. When you change it, this idea of guilt, right? Guilt is, hey, I made a mistake and now I have a problem to solve. Shame is, I am broken. I am beyond repair. Look at me. What's wrong with me, right? When your kid does something wrong, you say, what is wrong with you? Why would you possibly ever do a thing like that? What you're telling that child is something is broken within them. They are beyond repair. How do they fix that? But if you say to your kid, that behavior is unacceptable. You don't get to hit your sister in that way. They're not meant for hitting. That is dealing with the issue at hand. That's not shame-based, right? There's a very distinct difference. And understanding those reasons and then also internalizing that for yourself releases you from shame. The fourth is evaluating the worst thing that can happen to you if you face the shame head on. And this is how you get released, right? The wall of shame is powerful. In fact, for me, shame was more terrifying than death. I would rather die than face my shame. And that's a real thing, right? I think a lot of us face that. But if you can truly reflect, what is the worst possible thing that could happen to you if you walk head on into the shame that has you in its grip? Well, I could lose my family. I could lose my friends. I could lose my job. Whatever it is. You think of those things, right? It's probably not going to kill you. And then you get to decide how you want to act. And it can have a very, very powerful grip. And it did on me. When I was a little boy, I tell this story, and I don't want to in any way show that my mother was anything but an amazing woman, because she was. But she was part of her religious indoctrination, and this was a Christian sort of story that was told over and over again at the time I was a kid, which it seems archaic now, but this was a common thought in the time I was raised in the 70s. But the idea of virtue was seen to be extremely highly sought after. And those with virtue were the best people. And we were not to lose our virtue. And my mom, I remember, I'll never forget, I was sitting on the floor. I was maybe 4 or 5. I don't know exactly the age I was, but 4 or 5 years old. I'm sitting on the floor looking at my mom. She's a great storyteller, and she's telling us about the importance of virtue. And she says, after we understand what virtue is, being morally clean and sexually clean, she says to my sisters, who she was talking to, if there's a man with a knife to your throat and he's going to molest you or rape you, lean into the knife, because it's better for you to die than it is for you to lose your virtue. And I will never forget the electric shock of terror that shot up the back of my neck at the thought of the reality that I had lost my virtue because I had been molested at that point, and so had my sisters. And I'll never forget, and I said to my mom, "Mom, what if it happens to a boy?" And my mom looked at me and she says, "It doesn't happen to boys." And I said, "But what if it does? What if it did?" And she said, "Lean into the knife." And in that moment, the shame that encompassed me became a barrier to me meeting and being who I am for decades, really, for decades. It wasn't until my 40s that I was able to overcome it. And it was because I believed I was beyond redemption. I believed that I should be dead. As a little boy, I became suicidal from that point on for many, many years, because I didn't know what to do with that. I had no idea how to address it, right? In the same token, my mom would tell us, she was very good, right? She would tell us, if anyone ever accosts you or molests you, let me know, I'll take care of it, I'll take care of you. But I already knew that I should be dead, because the incongruity of those two stories didn't match up for me. And I had believed the first one. And so I could never tell my shame, because my shame meant I should die. And I was too afraid to die. I couldn't do it. I was a little kid. And so I just stuffed it down, and it became something that really, really controlled my life in many, many ways, and caused me to limit myself in many, many ways. And that's what shame does, because I became, into my core, someone that was broken and of no value. And that is the really, really negative side of shame. There's really no upside to it. I guess the upside is you get a really easy way to control somebody, right? But it's not effective because you're controlling them through fear versus teaching them, hey, that's an inappropriate behavior, you need to fix that, right? We put stuff under the carpet when we're faced with shame. We hide it. I had a similar thing on a much smaller scale. I was in 7th grade, and we were playing the last game of the series. It was for the district championships of the place where I lived. And we're up against this team, and we're playing on their court. And it was the last, 20 seconds of the game. And we inbounded the ball. I got the ball. I was supposed to dribble it up the court. There was not supposed to be full court press at that age group. They were only supposed to be able to press us at the half court. But this team was doing a full court press on us. And the ref, home court ref, he didn't call it. These are all my excuses for what happened. He didn't call the full court press. I tripped on my own feet. Nobody pushed me. Nobody tripped me. Somehow I stumbled, I fell, I lost the ball. The team recovered it. They shot, they scored. They beat us by 1 point with seconds on the clock, and we lost the game. And you know that for the rest of my basketball career through high school, I never wanted to take the last shot of the game. I was terrified. I didn't want to have to face that shame. I was so utterly embarrassed that I had been the person that had lost that game, and I heaped that shame upon me. And I thought that I was somehow insufficient to meet the task of a game-winning shot. And man alive, what a silly thing to carry. But I did that. I shamed myself. My team didn't shame me. They laughed at me, they poked fun at me, but they didn't do it in that way. But I was full of shame already, and I just heaped it upon myself, and it limited me in my ability to play. And so if shame is limiting you, if it's something that is coming at you, Take a look at these things. Evaluate how you're seeing yourself. And then consider the fact that it is not you that is broken. It is the thing that you're doing that is wrong, and you can fix it. There is a way forward, and you can walk through it and step out of shame. And if you do that, your life will get better, I promise. If you like this video, stick around. I've got another one coming up on how we can face the future without fear. And if you're feeling shame, you're full of fear. So you might want to watch that. I'm James Burnham. Thanks for joining me.